Hey, everybody, what's going on?
Hello.
So this holiday's just starting to like,
Popping off.
yeah, man, it's like fucking shit's got crazy in the last like few weeks, and it's interesting, right? Because and I guess the focus that this podcast is going to be on going into the holidays, like the 2020 holiday, maybe more specifically pinpointed toward like what the hell has been happening with Nintendo, because they've just been coming out firing rockets. And
He was like, nothing, and bam!
yeah, and it's funny because like a lot of people like act surprised by this, and people are like shocked. But prior to that, like only a couple weeks ago, everyone was just shit talking Nintendo left and right every chance they could get, right? Because it was just like how, because of COVID, right? Like COVID's been fucking everything up, and it's almost like people have recently forgot about that. And so whenever they were talking about Nintendo, they're just like, well, what the fuck? Why are you being so quiet? Because look outside, everyone's wearing masks. Shit's happening still, So and it's funny because the other excuse, a lot of people have made is just, well, fucking Sony, Microsoft, and like other people aren't having issues. And it's like, I don't know. Like I we'll get back to that and we'll touch on that, but I kind of disagree with that mentality. But Nintendo themselves have specifically said, like they came out publicly on a previous direct style video where they said that they value, this face-to-face style of business, and like more so than other companies. And I think it shows too in their products, right? Because it's like Nintendo's the one, every time they make an announcement, people pay attention because generally speaking, those things tend to be full of quality, like, when they come out with a game that it's going to be good. Even if it's something you don't like, it's going to have that polish and that quality to it. Where a lot of these other companies, I mean, they're shilling out like broken shit, stuff that like, look at the fucking Avengers, right? Like that's
oh yeah. Look, it's terrible.
And then if not that, then things get delayed. And it's just, it's a mess all around, but that's why it's like, I don't know. Like, I don't think that argument really holds up.
I agree to it because Nintendo's kind of like that person where they respond with their good, well, damn, and ready. And Nintendo and Sony are like just diarrhea of the mouth, just saying anything they can to keep your attention.
Microsoft and Sony, I mean.
Yeah. But Nintendo's like, I'll talk when I'm right. And then, but when they do talk, they really do give good content. Like the stuff they come out with, it's thoughtful, it's well polished, and it has just substance to it.
Yeah, I was surprised that people were surprised that Nintendo was making some like big announcements at the 11th hour, right? Because they really come out at the 11th hour swinging, and I never thought that wasn't the case. Because if you really thought that Nintendo was done with 2020, like I saw a lot of reports, like a lot of podcasts, people talking about, well, I guess Nintendo's just done for 2020 and they're, stoking the fire for 2021. And I'm just like, if you honestly thought that they weren't going to have something holiday related, like you're dense. Okay.
It's way too early to be quiet.
Yeah. Well, I know that they're a business that people love and they do a lot of things for the gamers, but they still are a business, a greedy, muddy, business like everybody else is. And they have shareholders, investors that they need to appease. Like they're not just going to be like, sorry guys, we're done with this year. All right,
we'll try again January.
Yeah, that's never going to happen. So it's funny to me that like some people would legitimately think that they would just be done. I think a good amount of us, the people that, are thinking with our brains, would know that some shit was coming out. We just didn't know what. And anyway, so that being said, let's actually kind of talk a little bit about what the fuck did just happen, because it was a lot of shit, right? Couple surprises. All this information is out. Like everybody knows what happened. So we're not going to, talk at full length about every single thing. Because it's been done. That horse has been beaten. That dead horse has been
nothing but
beaten.
Dust on the ground now. Yeah. He's like been shattered into nothing.
But yeah, I get so like if we're gonna kind of like take a focus too with Nintendo, obviously the first thing that they did a while back was the sort of shadow announcement of Pikmin 3 Deluxe, right? And they started these like little shadow bomb drops with the Paper Mario series back in July or June or whenever that was. So that's like all the more evidence why we knew more shit was going to come in that vein. But so yeah, so the first thing they did, I guess you could technically consider part of this series of holiday shit that they're throwing at us, was Pikmin 3 Deluxe. I'm not going to talk much about that. I mean, unless you want to add too many comments, but I don't have much experience with that game, and I know a lot of people love it. I personally am just not that interested in it. But that is
a cult following.
Yeah, it is. It's a bit of a big deal, and so for those people, like, it was announced not too long ago, and it's coming kind of around the bend, right? Like October 30th or whatever it is. But I guess that's sort of where they sort of popped off, right? Was that Pikmin 3 Deluxe coming in October, which likely maybe potentially other games were slated there, but then got pushed back, as the speculation, which is fine. But anyway, so and then they hit us with one of their big guns, right, with the Mario 35th Direct. Yeah, so a lot of shit came down. First off, like I don't know how you thought, but like I thought that was a solid ass Direct.
Yeah, there's a lot of content in it. I think I got maybe halfway through it, and I was pretty impressed, and I was expecting it to be kind of come to a close. And then more stuff kept coming out, and I was like, oh wow, this is actually pretty substantial content for just one Direct.
Like when I first heard a lot about the rumors that Mario centric Direct was coming, my immediate was like, we all heard the rumors of course the 3D All-Stars and everything, but like it was still like the idea of like a whole Direct focused around Mario. Now granted, I'm a Mario fan, but like I don't know, like even then there's a limit for me. So like I'm just thinking like how much Mario stuff can I really get excited at? And then I watched this Direct and I was like, holy shit, that was a fucking one of the best Directs period that I've ever seen, because it was like everything was just like I can't think of anything in that Direct that was disappointing. There's definitely several things in it that I'm less interested in, but everything was definitely exciting and interesting to witness or learn about.
I'm in the same boat as you. I was looking at each one of those things released in the Direct. I could tell myself, hey, while I might not be interested in that, I definitely know somebody that might actually want that sort of thing. So I was like, so each one of the things getting released, I was like, I already could think of somebody. They'd be like, oh, that's cool. So every single piece was interesting.
The Game & Watch is clearly like, that's a collector's item. I have no interest in that.
I thought it was kind of kitschy, but it's cool, I guess.
Oh, it's going to sell like hotcakes. Like, there's no doubt in my mind that that's going to be sold out minutes after it goes up for pre-order or whatever. But I mean, I that's, like I said, it's for collectors. I can't imagine what other audience is buying into that. There's 1.5 million ways to play Mario and the Lost Levels at this point. The clock's cool. The clock animation's cool. But then you remember that it's a 2-inch screen. You're like, if that's sitting on my desk. Like, yeah, am I really going to be able to tell what's going on?
What time is that you like pull them up to your face?
Yeah. But other than that, yeah, like that's definitely a collector's item, but it was fascinating. It's certainly, and it kind of, I wouldn't have expected it. I really wouldn't have. And then of course, they announced the 3D World plus Bowser's Fury collection, right? Like that was a terrible kept secret. Everyone knew 3D World was coming out. The Bowser's Fury though, that was like something that wasn't discussed or anything. And nobody's quite sure what that means yet. We'll have to like wait and find out if that's a whole new campaign or whatever it is. I'm a bit of a Nintendo sheep, like if I'm being completely honest with myself, so I'll probably end up picking it up. But the reality is I don't really care about 3D Mario World. Like I've seen 1 million trailers for this thing. I have tried to get myself interested in it, and I just never could, because it just seems so simple. And when things started to become really like over toyish looking or something, but I don't know. But the only thing that's kind of interesting from it is the heavy multiplayer aspect of it. I think that's cool.
Yeah, if you have a friend over, I think it might be worth hopping into it. But by itself, it didn't seem to pull me in as much as some of the other content did. Yeah,
that's kind of my thought too. Is playing it solo, it's never really fascinated me. But like just for the multiplayer aspect, I might be willing to try it out. But yeah, it's just that game's very divisive. There's people that love it, that absolutely love it, and then there's people that are just like, it's not for me. And I feel like even though I've never played it, I feel like I fall into the camp of it's not for me. But that being said, I will say this. What was it? I think Link Between Worlds on the 3DS came out in 2011? Or no, 2013 or something like that. And it was only a couple of years ago that I played it. Because like I didn't play 3DS much, but I was you know what it was? It was 2017 that I played it. So it was fine. It was 5 years later because I was itching to play Breath of the Wild and it wasn't released yet. So I was like, I want to pick up a Zelda game and get back into that. Yeah, get that Zelda fix, and I picked it up. And within the first couple of hours, maybe the first day or so, that instantly became one of my favorite Zeldas of all time. But when I initially saw the previews for it back in 2013, I was just disinterested because I was like, another 2D Zelda. I didn't like the art style. And then 3DS always felt gimmicky. And like, I wasn't that interested. But then I was like, holy shit, I'm pissed at myself for waiting 5 years because that game was incredible. So maybe... So
like you and Animal Crossing, right?
Yeah, we're not going to talk about that. So maybe this 3D world ends up being a similar case. Maybe I give it a go and it turns out to be an incredible experience. Who knows? But yeah, so that's cool. Said
for just giving something a try.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a $60 title.
Yep.
You know, it's just another Wii U port. I'm sure they're all coming at some point. And then, you know, I one of the announcements that got me the most excited was that Mario 35. That Battle Royale Tetris 99 thing, which was like, it's so smart. But of course, they put a damper on it by putting that limited time. So it's a Nintendo Switch Online feature, but it's going away in April. And it's just like, man, like...
I'm not sure what the decision was that. I don't know why they thought of that.
I mean, I guess because it's kind of like branded with 35th anniversary. Who knows? Maybe they'll make the Mario 2, then Mario 3 in that world, and they'll remove 35 and make it 99 or something. Who knows what they're thinking at the moment? But that's like, but it might just go away. And my problem is like, I think it looks so good, but now I'm like, I don't want to like it, because if I try it and I like it and then it goes away, I'm like, damn it,
abandoned all over again. Just like everything else.
But definitely a really cool idea, though, and it was a surprise. I wasn't expecting it. I thought it was really cool. Again, just another surprising hit. And then they hit us with the fucking Mario Kart Live Home Circuit, which, you know, is that Toys to Life kind of virtual reality. Augmented reality. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
This is another one of those things, kind of like the Game & Watch. It's not for me. Those who do get it, I think after a couple of times playing it, especially if you're older, it's probably you're gonna be like, if I was a kid, this would be shit out of that. Yeah, this would be super excited because RC cars, I used to play RC cars when I was a kid. They're freaking awesome. I still argue that they're a little bit better when off-road ones and shit. But like basically having a course anywhere you go with the environment, like I think that's really cool. Like I said, I think it's limiting in the fact that like you would sort of overdo it and the courses can probably be only so complex, like compared to a game developer course in Mario Kart official games. I'm just like, I don't know. I think it's going to go old fast, and for $100, it's just like not worth the investment. Plus, there's only Mario and Luigi that you can pick character-wise. I would not be surprised if they add more karts in the future for the other players. If it's
popular, I think they'll expand it. But I was just thinking the same thing, too. I was like, with the augmented reality, it has to go off of fixed points to attach the augmented things on your camera. And I think it uses the starting line and the end line as kind of fixed points for the camera to put the augmented reality into screen. And I can't imagine that'd be you could make too complex of a course in your house.
Right.
So I'm in agreement too that I feel like I don't think you can make it as complex enough of a course, like loops and other weird shit, to make it as enjoyable as I think it could have been if you could really make it a little more complex.
Yeah, and then of course there's the limitations with the physical object itself, right? Because like in Mario Kart, sometimes you go off ramps and you fly and all that kind of stuff, and it's like you can't really, you're limited away from that with like the physical thing that's on the ground. But yeah, it's definitely, the tech is really cool. And it's interesting to think about what they would do going forward. You know what? This is actually kind of interesting. This is one of the things that I was excited about when they were launching Super Mario World in the fucking Universal Studios. And they announced that there's going to be a Mario Kart game. I was thinking, to drive around in a go-kart and then have augmented reality shells that you throw at people and the sensors will stop their carts and stuff. This is kind of like that. Yeah. But you're just not riding in the cart. So I thought that tech was really cool. It's real. I'll be interested to see it. I would definitely find it interesting to get my hands on it, but not own it.
Because then rent it to us or just load it.
Then it would just be a thing in my house taking up space. They did shadow drop the Mario All-Stars day, like that day, on the Nintendo Switch Online service, the original All-Stars that was released back on the SNES. So it's on the SNES Online app.
The SNES.
And that's actually really cool because I've never played it. And then, so when I saw that shadow drop, I jumped on it. And it's really weird because it's like I know games like Mario and Mario 3 like the back of my hand. But now I'm playing them and they look completely different. Like Mario 1 looks like Mario 3, and it's like, whoa, like it's like seeing the game, like the game never, and I actually ended up going, it only took me like an hour to go all the way through the game because like I was eager to see what the whole game looked like in this new visual style. That's really cool. I like, for those, anybody out there that hasn't played it yet, give it a shot. I mean, it's free if you have the online service, and it's actually pretty fucking sweet.
So it gives it kind of a more of I wouldn't say remastered, but just a cleaned up look.
Yeah.
For the okay. I actually might be interested in that because playing back through that again with just a fresher look on it might be interesting.
Yeah, just do the original Mario, and that'll give you a good idea of what you're looking at. The only one that's a bit weird to me was Mario 3, because I always thought Mario 3 had fantastic visuals even today. And they've updated those visuals and they look a bit different, but I almost feel like they look a bit worse. So once you try that, I'll be interested to hear how you feel about that one. But that one's the only one that I was like, this looks worse. But anyway, really cool collection. And now it's free for anybody with online. So that's cool. So that was another really cool thing that they just threw out. And then finally, of course, the main event of that was the 3D All-Stars, which of course is limited too, which we could talk about. But exactly as the rumors have been going around, even the name 3D All-Stars. And it's Mario 64, Mario Sunshine, and Mario Galaxy. Yeah, and I'm actually really excited about this collection because obviously I love Mario 64. It's one of the greatest games of all time. And the GOAT. And and you know what? I actually have something to say about that. I'll come back to that. And then there's Sunshine, which I've never finished. And then Galaxy I've never played because I didn't own Wii. So I hear that's one of the best games ever too. So like I'm actually really excited to play that one and just kind of go through them again. But
Galaxy's hyper popular.
Yeah. But let's return to that real quick. This is a bit of I might even have to cut this out of the episode, but this is a bit of a tangent because I mentioned that, you know, you've Mario 64 and it's one of the greatest games of all time. And every time you talk about something like that, every time you say that, oh, this game is the greatest game of all time or one of the greatest games of all time, I usually use that phrasing one of, you know, because I think that there's room for a lot of games to be the greatest games of all time. But I think people misunderstand it. And it always bugs me whenever like a current generation person, like a teen, like someone that was born in like the 2000s, you know, like that era, it always cracks me up when that generation decides to have an opinion on these old classic games being helmed as greatest of all time. They go, well, it's not. I mean, come on, you're wearing the nostalgia glasses. Yeah, like the games are way better nowadays. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, well,
Destiny 2.
Yeah, like technically speaking, sure, but like I think people misunderstand or maybe even misrepresent what greatest game of all time actually is insinuating. It's basically the framework of that is that it either superseded or exceeded, you know, the framework or the status quo of a current generation and, you know, sort of set a new standard going forward.
Factoring in the time that it was presented in really gives,
And people push back on that, but I'm like, but that's not really, it's not just not fair. It just doesn't make any sense because you can't say, this game is the greatest all time. This game is the best game 20 years from now, right? Like that doesn't make any sense. So like you have to hold it to the standard, but it's more about what it has done in like during that period of time, right?
Look
like
at the original Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah,
is a prime example.
Yeah, like these games, like Final Fantasy VII, Mario 64, Ocarina of Time, right? These are some of the greatest games of all time, and like helmed as that. In like different respective genres, obviously. But basically what they did is like Mario 64, since we're talking about this, we'll just stick with this example. But Mario 64 came out, was one of the first 3D games, period, one of the first 3D platformers. And it not only did it, like it didn't just create the 3D version of the 2D stuff you've been playing, but it sort of like perfected the craft at that time. And set a standard that all other games like follow afterwards, right? Like I hear a lot of times when people talk about Mario 64, there's a lot of people that bring up like something like Banjo-Kazooie, and they say, "Oh, Banjo-Kazooie is a better game." I'm like, well, subjectively maybe you feel that way, and that's fine, but objectively speaking, Banjo-Kazooie Banjo-Kazooie is literally following in the shadow. They're following the footsteps of Mario 64. So many 3D platform games are doing exactly that. They're using the formula that Mario created, and then they're just kind of ripping it off. Now, if you like the story, the characters, the level design, all that kind of stuff better, like that's fine. That's you're like, there's no problem. But like to write off a game because like it's not your favorite thing or something, it's like it's missing the point. You know, like I'd even say things like Oblivion, you know, and Skyrim and stuff like that, like the Elder Scroll games. Those are probably helmed as some of the greatest games of all time for what they did for their genre. And then, just because I want to get it in every single video we do, Breath of the Wild came along, and and that redefined open world genre again. And that's why I think it's one of the greatest games of all time. That's why it's so highly acclaimed. Not just because, oh, it's another Zelda title, or oh, it's another Mario title, or oh, it's another this or that. It's because of what they're doing to the industry. And then, of course, they do have future effects, right? Like that does balloon out because, you know, like when Ocarina of Time came out, every game for a very long time, even today, still uses the Z targeting that game created. So it's, you know, so that's why I think part of the reason why people confuse the greatest game of all time idea is that like, oh, well, you know, other games are mechanically better and blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, technology has advanced. Mechanics have advanced. The machines are more powerful, all this kind of shit. So naturally that stuff's going to get better. But it's rare to find a game, any modern game, that breaks the standards of the modern era.
Yeah. So shut up, you young punks.
Yeah. It's kind of like saying like fucking Michael Jordan or Babe Ruth like are not the greatest of all time. Like fuck them. These other people broke this record or that record, and so we should take them out of the Hall of Fame. It's like, no, they still at that time, you know, like when it's like, just relax. I guess it's like, and there's room for more, right? Calling a game one of the greatest games of all time doesn't mean that other games can't sit upon that same mantle. You have many trophies. Anyway, so like I said, that was a big tangent, but I just kind of wanted to tackle that greatest game of all time discussion that a lot of people like to have, and how people like to discredit things that are held at that. And it's like, it's stupid, it's senseless, and it's missing the point. But let's talk about this 3D Mario All-Stars, right? Because there's a bit to unpack here. There's of course, the first thing is the release date. 2 weeks after the announcement. Like that's fucking really crazy. Yeah, we're recording. We're recording this Friday. What's today? The 11th. Mm-hmm. So this next Friday, this thing's coming out. This announcement was last week, and it's coming out next week.
And now,
yeah, it's like for something of this magnitude, like that's basically a shadow drop, you know. Mm-hmm. Like if they would have done this with like Mario Odyssey 2, or like Breath of the Wild 2 or something, like you'd be like your head would explode.
Oh, what?
And this is like just under that. Like this is like, because like of course these are old games, they're kind of like ports, you know, whatever, like remastered ports. But that's fucking crazy. So I know everyone mentioned it, but it's like I feel like no one's like really emphasizing how fucking crazy that is. That's pretty wild.
Nintendo loves to do stuff like this. I don't know why. Like I don't know if they're just like F it, and they just don't really care about like milking things for the PR and the, you know, building up hype. But they do this so often. We're like, tomorrow. And everyone's like, you know,
yeah,
and it's crazy.
Yeah, I think part of it is like they're Nintendo. They know they're gonna take a shit and wrap it in tinfoil, and people are gonna buy it.
You suckers are gonna buy it and love it.
But so that's fucking crazy. But then but you know, there's a lot of controversy. There's a lot of like divisive shit that's going out. Yeah, always, right? Like this, like how many times, it's so inconsistent to a certain degree. But it's like, how many times have people like said, oh my God, if they just give me Mario 64, I would just take my money. And now if they do it, they're like, whoa, it's not in the Odyssey engine. And it's like, dude, like pick a fucking story and stick with it. First off, if you were expecting any of these games, especially 64, to be done in the Odyssey engine, you're insane. That wasn't even a rumor. That was like somebody or a couple of people made a comment on the rumors about Mario 64, about this collection coming, about wouldn't it be neat to see it done in the Odyssey engine, and then somehow people ran with that as a rumor.
There's a lot of wishful thinking there.
It's just, the Nintendo video game fans in general do this all the time. It's like setting their expectations unrealistically high only to fall over and over again. Isn't that the definition of insanity? I think so.
Yeah, I think it is.
And so any disappointment that you have of the changes that they've done, 95+% of that is on you. You probably did that to yourself. The only thing that I do kind of agree with and was a little bit a surprise myself was that Mario 64 didn't get the widescreen treatment. And the reason I'm surprised that it didn't is because Sunshine did. So I'm like, why would you do it for Sunshine but not Odyssey, but not 64? The only comforting thought that I can come up with is that they're trying to really preserve that old historic style of 64.
So. I think they're trying to. I think they could have optimized it in a way that would have done that well, but I feel like they were trying to stay true to kind of their roots with this one, and I can't say I'm not unhappy about it. I can see what they're trying to do with it.
Yeah, I mean, I was expecting the bare minimum, so I'm not disappointed. But I was just taken back a little. That was the only, if I had to be disappointed, that was what it was after, because it was just like, if you're doing it for Sunshine, why wouldn't you do it for 64? But you know what? My guess is that they didn't like really do it for that. There's probably less thought than that. It was probably just like, it's just easier, just upscale it. But and then knowing people are going to buy it. But yes, they did though increase the resolution so that when you're playing it is going to look good on modern devices, as well as they did give Sunshine the widescreen treatment, and then Galaxy they upped the resolution a little bit too. And I'm hoping, they haven't described it yet, but I'm hoping that the camera control is for 64 is mapped to the stick now and not locked to like incremental terms.
Yeah, I'm hoping there's a little bit smoothing out of that, because I remember with 64, the movements were kind of blocky. I don't want to say blocky, but like tangential.
Yeah, because you use the C buttons.
Yes,
because back then there was no twin stick, right? And now that there is, I think even like the DS version had like twin stick control, but it's like, it's clear that they're not really using the DS version that they're updating. So I don't know. Like my concern, because even if you look at the trailer, the camera is never rotating. And my concern is what I'm thinking they may have done is mapped that C buttons to basically, if you hit left on the joystick, it'll be the left C button and it'll still move in those disjointed things. Yeah, that's what I'm concerned it's going to be. It's not a complete deal, because we've all been playing Mario 64 like that for a long time. But I do hope that they did correct that. But I guess time will tell. And then of course a lot of people had issues with the price, which again is another bit inconsistent, because if you think about this, 3 games for $60, and actually if you get digitally, I think it's $50. But let's just look at the $60 retail package. You're getting 3 games. If you even them all out, that's $20 a pop for 64, GameCube, and then a Wii game.
It's a good deal.
Like $20 a pop. I mean, to think that either of those games would be any less than that if they were individual, it's kind of naive again too.
60 was expected, to be honest. I expected 60. So the fact that it is 60, not anything more, cool.
Well, in the old virtual console, when they would sell games, they'd be like $10 to $15, and that was some like SNES games and shit. So like, I mean, like it's like realistically, I think the package is priced as what should be expected. At the end of the day, you're getting what you. I mean, they could have given you nothing. They could have done none of this at all. But of course, the big thing, is the limited release, right? The limited run.
Yep.
Just like 35. But this time people have a bigger deal with it because it's something that everybody's wanted, and they're basically saying, well, you got to get it when you get it, otherwise tough shit. Now, personally, it doesn't bother me as much because as soon as I saw that limited, as soon as I saw the title, I knew I was going to pre-order, but as soon as I saw limited, I'm like, yep, pre-order now. And I think most people, I think most people that want this would have done that as soon as they saw that too. I know that there's the argument about, like people that don't have money, especially during the pandemic. It is a weird move. It's not unprecedented. Like they did it for the 25th anniversary, the original All-Stars games. So it's not surprising that they're doing it again. And then they did re-release All-Stars like 6 years later. So who knows, in 6 years from now. But like the scalpers and stuff is creating a fuss, right? With this limited release, like as they always do. I mean, you can continue to buy it digitally until that time. That's the weird thing, right? Which I think everybody agrees with. The weird part is that they're the digital limited release. The physical kind of makes sense.
Yeah. I was gonna say I was confused on that too. I'm like, why did the digital have to follow the same pattern? Yeah. It's not like you're receiving a physical copy. It makes no sense to me at all.
Yeah. And you know what? I think what would have been, I think the best way to handle a physical run is, I think if it was only available to purchase off the Nintendo store, like the physical copy, that way they could literally filter all the orders and just end up producing that many in the long run. And then you wouldn't have to worry about scalpers. Except for the only people that would worry about scalpers would be the people that miss the deadline altogether, but then that's their fault. You know what I mean? But it does suck whenever, like, maybe a week after the announcement, when somebody gets their paycheck, they go and then Amazon's sold out. Like, that sucks.
Amazon's already sold out, yeah.
Yeah, because that sucks. But, and I think that's another thing, too, where, like, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, like, one of the issues I think people have with, like, the improvements that they've made is because they're looking to the original All-Stars. And when that game was released, of course, they remastered every single one of the games, all the 4 games that were included. And then they had like a music track, a booklet, and this one's just like kind of ports plus a music, all the tracks from all the games. But to that, I would say, I get it. I get where they're coming from. But to that, I would say, the original games, like the original Mario and stuff, like nowadays, like that stuff's so easy to come by. Whereas like the 3D Mario games really aren't that easy. So this is still kind of the best way you're going to access those, especially officially, without fucking running ROMs and getting fucking potential malware on your computer. But anyway, so that's a pretty big drop, and it's coming out really soon. That's going to tide people over for a little bit of time. It is old games, but still cool.
They're each individual great games, though, really. And think of the hours of content you can get for each one of those.
Oh yeah,
it's a pretty substantial amount of hours of content.
Oh yeah, they're massive games. Mario 64 is massive.
Yeah.
And it's still that kind of like comfort food of gaming, like it's every time I go home, like, and visit my parents, like I end up hooking up my N64 and playing like a level of Mario 64, and it still plays great, looks great, like everything is still fantastic, and it still holds up tremendously. Like the gameplay style and how it's structured is it's so incredible. It's interesting though, because like that's the kind of game too where like you can kind of experience the full thing in like maybe 2 hours, like because like not like beat the game, but like what you'll do in the first 2 hours is the entirety of the game, just at a smaller scale. So that's why like sometimes I like returning to it, is because like I'll play it up until I beat Bowser for the first time. So like, and then I'm like, all right, I kind of did all of what you do in Mario 64. I just didn't do all of the levels, But anyway, so that was neat. And then fucking they drop another bombshell on us with this Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity.
Yeah.
This shit wasn't even leaked.
Surprisingly.
And it's coming out in November. So,
I know, right?
So I guess that's like their holiday game. Well, I'll tell you this. I'm not 100% convinced that this is the only holiday thing. I'm not saying I'm going to be massively surprised if it is, but I just feel like there's probably some other announcements coming. Might not be as large or whatever. It might not even be a bombshell. I just think that there still might be a couple of things. There might even be another little direct here before the holiday. And don't forget, December is still part of the holiday, so they could still technically announce something for that time too. But anyway, I'm not convinced that this is the only holiday thing that's coming up for Nintendo. That being said, this one's fascinating because obviously it's a Warriors game. Like, it's kind of like, I believe it's official canon from what it seems. So it's basically the prequel to Breath of the Wild, which makes Breath of the Wild kind of a, you know, a trilogy now. You know, we're going to have this, there's Breath of the Wild, then Breath of the Wild 2, whatever that's going to be named. I like how they announced this, by the way, like immediately right off the bat, they like just deflated everyone by saying, I know you want to know about Breath of the Wild 2. And everyone's like, well, you gotta wait. You know, so we'll see. Who knows? Maybe they'll do a Game Awards announcement or something for that. Who knows? But yeah, I'm not tremendously interested in the Dynasty Warriors gameplay style.
Hack and slash.
Yeah. I mean, I know me and you played a couple of those as kids. And they're fun for, like, I don't know. Like, I always felt like they were fun for 10 minutes and then it's like, okay, I'm done. But of course, being the sheep I am for Zelda, you put official visuals and official story beats and canon into this game. I have to play it. Yeah, it's like, it's brilliant because anyone that's like, even if you're not interested in Warriors, like, everyone has to buy it because, like, well, I can't not have the full complete fucking story. So even if I don't like the gameplay, I'm probably gonna get this just to run through the story, and I'll force myself to run through the whole thing. I'm not gonna get the hundreds of hours of relaxing content I got with Breath of the Wild, but maybe I'll get 20, 25 hours of running as fast as I can to get through the story just so I know that piece.
And
so
it's a true Dynasty style game. Usually those ones allow you to play with your friends in this hack and slash kind of thing. So there might be a little opportunity there for some fun gameplay with some buddies too. So yeah, I'm curious about that.
Yeah, multiplayer Zelda, multiplayer Breath of the Wild.
Yeah,
get to play concept, as maybe. Zelda, as the champions, like a lot of stuff to get Zelda fans into this, which I think is brilliant on, you know, their marketing and, you know, the structure of this thing. But it also, like, it is interesting because it does look like it's not the same as a regular Warriors. Like, the battles are, like, that gameplay is, but it seems like they're saying you can do things like solve overworld puzzles, visit shops, craft and customize things. So I'm wondering if, like, they are doing more because they do say that they're working closely with the developers of Breath of the Wild for, you know, things like the graphics, dialogue, and other stuff. I'm guessing story beats and everything there too. But if they are doing that and you're going to shops and everything, like, maybe it's almost like a little bit of more of a blend of a Zelda game into it. And for that reason
like
alone,
a hybrid.
Yeah, it might be more engaging. Hopefully they at least fix the crazy whipping camera system. But it's, you know, it's funny because they came out, Anuma, you know, approached and said, like, oh, wouldn't it be great to tell the story of Calamity? Because it would be fitting, right? These giant battles would be fitting of a Warriors type game. And at first I was like, yeah, okay. You know, like, this is like one of those, like, where somebody does something and you're like trying to convince somebody that you did, like, you bought something and you're trying to convince, like, someone that, I promise. Yeah, it's like, well, I figured if I buy that now, but realistically it's like you're full of shit and you just wanted it. Like, it's like, it kind of sounded like that kind of pitch to me. But then the more I thought about it, I thought, you know what? This does actually kind of make sense. And for that reason, it's actually giving me a new perspective on the game. And I'm starting to look at this thing in a way of where, because if you think about the way that Breath of the Wild story was told, it's, you know, Impa's voiceover with the canvas, you know, like almost ancient cave paintings of, like, Zelda and, like, you know, just an image, and it goes 100 years the Calamity has destroyed. How do you like my Impa voice? But and it's telling this like almost mythologic, you know, like, story, this like heroic story. And if you think about this game is like sort of telling that type of a story by putting it in the Warriors, like it gives you this, like, you know, those old epic heroic mythology tales, like, think like Beowulf right? Like when they talk about this shit and they say like, and he killed 100 soldiers with the swipe of a sword, and you know, with one fell swoop, he killed an entire army. And it's not like real, right? Like it's an over exaggerated version of what happened, where the truth is, okay, this guy came and he killed 100 people, probably took months. But in the story, it's epic. It's he was so powerful. He killed 100 people with one swipe. And that's kind of what these warrior games are kind of like. And especially if you blend that with the telling of the Calamity story and how Breath of the Wild went about it. And now we're like, it's almost like we're getting a visual representation of Impa's story, and where she's telling you, and Link was this strong warrior, and with one swoop of his sword, he took out 100 enemies. So it's like we're almost playing an exaggerated, epic, heroic mythology story. And having that perspective in my head, it actually sounds like that's a fucking brilliant idea. And I'm now super excited to jump into it.
Now I have to play it.
Yeah. But just changing my like perspective to something like that. And I know that's like they're not coming out with, like, I'm just kind of perceiving that, but like it really does make a lot of sense. And I think if you think about it like that, it really sounds fucking awesome. So like everything that you're doing in the game, nothing's really literal. It's all a visual representation of what the story actually is. But anyway, so I think that's fucking awesome. That's a great bombshell. And I think even though it's a Warriors game, because it's Breath of the Wild and you know it's Nintendo, it's gonna sell like gangbusters. Speaking of which, like fucking Mario All-Stars, second highest selling game of the year within a week. Yeah, like it's catching up to fucking Animal Crossing. And you know what? This is part of that shitty limited release aspect of it too, right? Is because I can't help but feel like, you know, like this whole, like, you know, in that meeting that they had with the investors probably had something to do. They probably talked about this.
End of the year kind of financial shit.
Don't worry. We put a limitation on it so people are forced to buy it immediately, driving our numbers way up.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. Again, I
stockholders.
I do think most people that this game is geared towards are the type of people that are going to buy it immediately and aren't going to have to worry about missing that window. Because it really is just nostalgia pieces and throwbacks, and it's a collector's item. You know, I don't think too many people are even going to care to pick it up physically if it's not a collector's item.
Maybe that FOMO is just going to eke out just a few more sales to get the numbers a little bit more. You know what I mean?
It absolutely did. Like, this would not have sold as fast as it did if there wasn't a time limit. People are trying to beat out the scalpers. That's pure and simple, as simple as it is. And then, of course, like they do, like I know that this is not everyone's super excited about this, but I feel like people are also kind of forgetting about this one. But the Cadence of Hyrule physical game is coming out, I think in October. It's like October 2nd or something like that. I could have that date wrong.
Pretty soon, the earlier part of October. So it's like 2 weeks out.
Yeah, it's around the bend. And if you haven't played this game, this is exciting because it's now coming out in physical release and it's coming with DLC. So the DLC is new for everybody that's had this game. That DLC is going to be brand new content. And then the physical release is going to have that content included with it. So that's actually pretty cool. That game's pretty fucking cool. Like I've never played one of those games prior to it. It's that Crypt of the Necrodancer where it's you know, based on the instruments. It's what do you call that?
The movement in that game looked really. It was interesting how they. I don't know. I looked at the mapping of their movement. It was confusing me. Yeah. How it worked, but it was interesting.
Yeah, it's like a beat centric game, like where you follow the beats and you have to. And it's really cool. And the remix Zelda songs are so fucking good, like the rock remixes. But yeah, and then actually in that game, if you're really against it, you can actually turn that off. You can play the game normally without worrying about going to the beat.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, if you do want to just play the game like a standard kind of almost top-down Zelda game, you can. And that game's super cool. So if you haven't looked into it, I think the physical is going to be like $30 or maybe $40, and then if you get the DLC and everything for the digital version, it's like $10 cheaper.
That's not bad.
Yeah, definitely. If anyone hasn't, there's a free demo. So if anyone hasn't tried this, go download the demo and give it a shot. It's pretty fucking cool. Anyway, and then I guess, the last thing kind of coming up for the Switch during the holidays, which is, of course, multiplat, is this, Immortals Fenyx Rising, which I wanted to include in this list, even though it wasn't Nintendo, because I just feel like we should talk about this game.
Talk about it?
Yeah. What a fucking shameless ripoff of Breath of the Wild is this, man? It's like,
yeah.
I mean, it's like they threw a little bit of Kid Icarus in there.
Mm-hmm.
But man, they were showing the trailer and I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, I was like looking around, nobody else is around me, but I was like, is everybody seeing this?
Yeah, graphically and everything.
Everything.
It seemed...
Everything. Visually, the way like the demo starts out where you're looking on top of the mountain and it's scanning, it's the exact same way that Breath of the Wild was introed. Then they jump off and glide, and then there's stamina. You go to a top of a mountain / formation, and then you use your vision and then set a marker, just like the Sheikah Slate, like when you're on top of a tower, and then you fly to these shrines, basically. And you go into these shrines and they all look the same and they're blue. You solve puzzles and then you get to the end and you get a fucking orb to update your health and stamina. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? And then just to keep, throwing it in there, they show that technique where like she has basically technesis, or magnesis from Breath of the Wild. I can't believe how much, like, it's like embarrassing how much this is a blatant ripoff of Breath of the Wild. And it's like, it's one of those things where like, I don't mind, when games like blatantly like rip, and they can still be a lot of fun, and I'm going to pick this up and I'm sure it's going to be fun.
It looks good.
But it's like, it's kind of annoying because it's like, what you're supposed to do when you take inspiration from games, you're supposed to like build upon it and make it your own. And they really have not made this thing their own. It's literally Breath of the Wild, but they just didn't have access to the IP. And then it's kind of like Blossom Tales. I don't know if you've played Blossom Tales when that came out. You remember that game? So
it's not familiar.
I think it's on all platforms and PC and everything. It's fantastic. It's basically a 2D Zelda game, just without the Zelda IP. And matter of fact, like, I don't even want to say it's a 2D. I don't want to say it's a Zelda style game. It is a Zelda game. They just replaced the model. So like, and they actually even poke fun of it at the very beginning. I like how the game starts because it's kind of like a Princess Bride where a grandfather is reading to his grandkids. And he's like, have I told you the tale long ago of a young boy in a green tunic in the land of Hyrule? And then they cut him off and they're like, no, Grant, we've already heard that one. So they do poke fun at it. And but it's like an old 8-bit-ish / 16-bit. It's like the fusion of those. But it's awesome. It really is just playing another 2D Zelda game. Like all the items and dungeons, like it's all designed. The bosses are a bit more difficult than what you'd find in a traditional Zelda game, which is cool. But yeah, phenomenal game. It's like you can get it on the eShop for like $10 now, I think 10 to 20. I don't know. I probably get it on Steam for cheaper. But yeah, that game's super great. And so for that reason, you can have blatant ripoffs that are good. But it's disappointing in the sense that like, like make it your own thing, right? And that's why like Banjo-Kazooie, right? Like they rip off of Mario a lot, right? But it's still its own identity. And so you can look back fondly at Banjo-Kazooie.
Even if games are kind of rip-offs of each other, but they're
if nothing else, the mascots themselves are very unique and everything like that. Yeah. And but that's why, like, I mean, I mentioned Blossom Tales here, but I rarely think about it. I rarely tell people or talk about that game because there's nothing that makes that game unique or its own thing. And that's how I feel about Immortals. There's nothing here that I'm seeing that makes me want to talk about it other than the fact that it's ripping off. That's the only thing I want to talk about.
There's Greek mythology. That's different.
but it's not, sure, it's a visual style difference, but it's like the characters aren't really memorable from what I'm seeing. Like, the fucking title. Is there anything that sounds more like a fucking shitty smartphone game?
The tourney game.
God, the original title, Gods and Monsters, was so solid.
Yeah, they changed it for.
Yeah, but who knows? Anyway, bad move there. But anyway, I just thought this was real funny. And then we posted a tweet where I found another image where they were doing a puzzle and like a world puzzle, and they were dropping these blue orbs into like these orange golden discs. And I'm like, that's literally a Zelda Breath of the Wild puzzle. You do that in shrines. Like
stroking out over here.
It looks, it's just so ridiculous.
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
But it doesn't look as polished though. Like it looks lesser. It's like,
that's Ubisoft right there, unpolished
yeah,
releases.
Well, first off, I don't know, like the camera's pulled back a little too. It's like almost isometric. And then like the combat doesn't seem as smooth. The actual running and moving around doesn't look quite as smooth. But that being said, I still think it looks good. It's coming to Switch day and date as it stands right now, which is cool. And given that it is Ubisoft, they've done good with the Switch in the past. So for those that are like Switch users, you might get a pretty competent port.
Okay.
This kind of all though, like everything that we just talked about, with, even dating back to Paper Mario Origami King, Pikmin 3, the 35th anniversary, which included All-Stars, and then now the big Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. The discussion has to be like, what are your thoughts on, like the traditional directs versus these sort of shadow drop announcement approach?
I hate both of them.
But good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. No, it's a good question because like both of them have their appeal where I kind of love the shadow drops to a certain extent because boy, do I love surprises. And I'm so used to other companies milking like, hey, we're launching this game like 2 years out, and now you wait, and you're just kind of like, they almost do it way too early.
Mm-hmm.
Now I like the shadow drops because it's almost like it just from the blue. It's that unexpected surprise in your day that you just weren't expecting, and it's really nice.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I like both. Like the directs are always fun too, and I would definitely welcome them back for sure. But the shadow drop thing is nice. It really is kind of like almost instant gratification where it's like announced and then bam, it's like like the 3D All Stars. It's like, oh man, I can't wait. I don't have to. And,
yeah, exactly.
And especially if you're someone that's not instantly up on all the news, fuck, by the time you hear about it, it might be a couple days out. Like it's so like it's such an interesting idea, and it keeps it like that. Yeah, like it's like that Christmas, those surprises. I really do like that because we see time and time again, like almost every game is delayed nowadays. And it's like, look at fucking Final Fantasy VII Remake, and it's just like that was like 5 years after they announce it, like it finally fucking comes out, and it's like, how long have people been hyped in this, to the point of where you lose all of your hype,
Yeah.
And then some games get outright canceled, it's like, and
all that hope.
Yeah, and it's so nice to see. And that's why like Nintendo's been very smart. They've been, like we're going to hold our shit close to our chest until we know it's ready, and then we'll tell you about it, and and you're going to be pumped because you won't have to wait too long.
There's like no disappointment factor.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess of course, this does beg the question, is this enough? Like with all the games coming out that we mentioned, people are still going to bitch, I'm sure.
Regardless.
Right, like, well, I'm not big into Warriors, and I'm not, a 3D All-Stars fan, and I don't care about Pikmin, so what else do we got?
I hated everything here.
Yeah. But considering, with Paper Mario, Pikmin, 35th, Warriors, and now Immortals, Fenyx Rising for all plats, like everything is coming. And again, I'm still convinced that we're probably going to see a couple more things. I still think, if nothing else, we'll probably at least see a Smash character.
Yeah, something.
I think, given the circumstances, it's a pretty good setup. And I think if you were to like actually go back and look at all the titles that were actually released this year, and not just Nintendo, like everything, like like fucking Tony Hawk just came out, and it feels like everyone stopped talking about that game instantly. That's a big fucking deal.
People are just ravenous.
Yeah, they really are relentless. And it's just, like, I think given the circumstances, it's fair. And they actually had a relatively decent year. And like it or not, they're fucking selling shit like crazy. Like we already talked about Animal Crossing and fucking how All-Stars has already flown off the moon. I don't know what the fuck that saying is. Flown off the moon. I'm just going to leave that as if it's an actual saying. So, and then of course, Age of Calamity is going to sell crazy. And But the other thing too is like everyone's so quick to give Nintendo so much shit. But look at Sony and Microsoft. Like if you're comparing what they're doing, right? Because that was, we talked about that sort of at the beginning, but everyone talked about like, whoa, what the hell, Nintendo? Everyone else has their shit together. Sony and Microsoft are continuing with their plans. What the hell's your problem? Why can't you do anything? And I look at that and I go, are they really? Like,
yeah, what plans?
yeah, like, because like it's what? Like they waited until the 11th hour to announce the price for these next gen consoles, and then look at the titles for next gen. Like right now, like a lot of them are saying release window. A lot of them are getting delayed and pushed back. And a lot of the focus is really current gen titles that are going to get free bumps for next gen.
Fortnite.
And yeah, Destiny 2 is coming to PS5 and Xbox Series X, by the way. So, and it's like if you actually look at the and not just the titles that are coming out, but the first party exclusives, because that's really what it comes down to, right? Like because yeah, you can look at Fenyx Rising, that's multi-plat. So like but like PlayStation, of course, like there's no date definitive yet on Horizon sequel, Forbidden West. Ratchet and Clank, which does look freaking awesome.
Yeah.
That says release window, but there's no definitive date on it yet, and who's to say if that's not going to get delayed? And that's the whole thing going in the next generation too. With greater power comes greater delays. Which brings me to this transition. The Spider-Man game, of course, is like it's a smaller thing, like that Miles Morales.
It's like a patch or an expansion.
It's kind of it's like an expansion game, and it's so it's like what's real, and of course now Halo got pushed. It's like, so what, like the next gen for this other stuff that's coming out, you're gonna have a box sitting by. It's kind of like a Knack 2 situation again, like a Knack situation, right? Like where it's like, okay, you're going to have a random game that's not, mega AAA, or as Ubisoft wants to put it, quadruple A. Yeah, you're going to have like a Godfall game, and then you're going to have to wait months before you can play something like, Ratchet and Clank. And
it's almost like, hey, you got this cool tech demo. I guess I'm waiting now for something cool to come out.
Yeah, and then so it's like, I don't know, like it's funny because it's like I've been sitting back and watching and listening to everyone like shit all over Nintendo about like how like everyone else is ready. I'm like, but they're not though. Yeah. Like I just don't think it's a fair standard that people have been putting. The gaming community is just so inconsistent. It really is. Like everyone's just bitching just a bitch, and it's like no matter what.
It's a bunch of fanboys just bitching at each other.
Yeah, and then bitching among themselves too. Like the 3D All-Stars isn't exactly what I wanted, but like a few weeks ago you were talking about how you would just give them all your money for the bare bones.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think the holidays are definitely shaping up to be interesting because everything we mentioned about Nintendo, but then of course you do have the new consoles coming out. So, wait and see, but holidays definitely, just the last couple of weeks, holiday got a hell of a lot more interesting. That's for sure.
If this is a precursor to what might be coming in maybe mid to late October, some more releases and some other stuff, then, I do fully expect it to be something else, not just with Nintendo, but more stuff will be released for this holiday season, I think. I think if this is a good precursor, I think this is going to be a good holiday season for some interesting stuff coming out. But here's the hoping.
But yeah, so anyway, that's I think that's going to wrap it up for us. If you like this content in general, subscribe, hit the like button, check out all of our other videos, check out our couch plays. They're a lot of fun. And until the next one, cheers.
Later, guys.